Welcome to Land of the Bible. I'm your host, David Sussman, and today's episode, we're going to learn about the resilience of the nation of Israel. There's a phrase in Hebrew, Am Yisrael Chai, the nation of Israel lives. It's more than a slogan. It's a declaration of survival, purpose, and faith that has carried us through the ages. The story of Israel is more than just a story of a country. It's a story of a people who refuse to disappear. For thousands of years, empires have come and gone. Powerful rulers, massive armies have all tried to erase the Jewish people from history. The Romans tried, the Babylonians tried, the Crusaders, the Inquisitors, the Nazis, even the Arabs. And yet, here we stand in Jerusalem, in the land of Israel, alive. How? Because our resilience is woven into who we are. It's in the prayers we recite every day. It's in the dreams we pass on. And it's in the courage we use to keep rebuilding even after everything's been torn down. From the ancient prophets to the modern pioneers, the story of the Jewish people has always been one of rising up. Not once, but again and again. No matter how dark the night, we have always found a way to bring back the light. And that, my friends, that is the miracle. Not just that we survived, but that we turned survival into strength, tragedy into triumph, and faith into a nation reborn. The story of Israel's resilience can date back all the way to the time when we were slaves in Egypt. For hundreds of years, we were oppressed by Pharaoh. Moses, and with God and many great miracles that were performed there, we were led out of that captivity and we were brought into the Promised Land. After the death of Moses, which takes place on the eastern side of the Jordan River, Joshua would become the new leader of the Israelites. He'll lead them across the Jordan River. And after an easy and miraculous battle over the city of Jericho, the rest of the land of Canaan, the Promised Land, will be a little bit more difficult to defend and to defeat. The period that would follow would be the period of the Judges. And it wasn't a simple time for the nation of Israel. There were times when we were strong and times when we were weak. The capital was not established here in Jerusalem, but rather in Shiloh, in Samaria, where the tabernacle, the predecessor of the temple, stood for 369 years. It wouldn't be until the reign of King David where Jerusalem wouldn't only be our eternal spiritual capital, but would become our physical capital as well. and it would be his son Solomon who would build the first temple. We're looking out now onto the old city of Jerusalem, where the first and second temples stood for nearly 1,000 years. The first temple, as I mentioned, was built by King Solomon sometime in the 10th century BCE. However, the Babylonians will arrive here nearly 400 years later in the year 586 BCE. They'll ransack the cities of Israel across the entire land. They'll arrive here into Jerusalem, lay siege to the city, burn it to the ground, and destroy it, and send the Jewish people into an exile. And there by the rivers of Babylon, we wept and we mourned the destruction of our holy temple. However, 70 years later, in the miraculous story of Purim, we were once again allowed to return to our land. And one of the very first things we did, led by Nehemiah and Ezra, is we would rebuild the temple. And this period will last for almost 600 years, although not without its own problems. Throughout those 600 years, many battles were fought, but none greater than the battle we had with the Greeks, with the Seleucids to be specific. This is the story of Hanukkah. When the Greeks came to our temple, they defiled it. They offered sacrifices of pigs on our holy ground. However, we mustered up our resilience, our strength, and we were able to overcome, even though we were weak and few, and fighting against the many and powerful. We were able to re-sanctify the temple. And not only that, just a few generations later, during the reign of King Herod, we built it into one of the greatest buildings ever built by mankind, past or present. This glorious period would not last long due to infighting within the Jewish nation. God decreed that we were unworthy of that temple. He sent the Romans here into the land of Israel, and they destroyed our holy temple. And once again, we found ourselves in exile. And even though we hoped that this exile would last less than the Babylonian exile, we were wrong. And we were in exile for almost 2,000 years. And we never gave up. That strength, that resilience, that trust that we have in God, that one day, as the prophets told us, He would return us to our land, to the city of Jerusalem, that you would see old man with staff in hand, you would see children playing in the streets. Well, today I can tell you, you walk the streets of Jerusalem, you will see those very images as the prophecy is actually unfolding before our eyes in this time.
Imagine walking where Jesus walked, where faith comes to life. Feel the Bible story unfold around you, from the green Galilee to Jerusalem's ancient streets. Experience the serene and welcoming land of the Bible, where miracles happen. Put your heart where His footsteps are. Visit Israel.
Welcome to Mount Herzl, Israel's military cemetery, as well as the burial place of its national leaders. You know, when we think of resilience, we usually think of strength of arms, the military, but it's not always measured in the power of a weapon, but also in the power of the heart and mind. It was the visionary leaders that laid out a plan of what Israel will look like today, as well as in the future. There is no greater Zionist visionary than Theodor Herzl. While Theodore was working as a journalist in France covering the Alfred Dreyfus affair, Alfred Dreyfus being a captain in the French army who was set up by some anti-Semites for treason. He stood trial, and even though it was obvious to everyone he was innocent, he was still convicted and sent to jail. Theodore realizing that in the epitome, in the bastion of liberal Europe, even a Jew was not safe. It was in Basel, Switzerland, during a meeting of the World Zionist Congress that this room replicates, that Theodor Herzl famously said, "If it's not today, within 50 years, there'll be a Jewish state." 50 years later, almost to the day, the State of Israel was announced. Herzl was a visionary and used his pen as a sword. He wrote the pamphlet, Alt Neuland, the Old Land and the New Jew, which inspired so many people around the world that the time was ripe for the Jewish people to return to the land of Israel. However, his quest was not easy. He spent his entire family's fortune, the equivalent to billions of dollars in today's currency. He traveled the world, he met with world leaders, and was constantly denied his request that the Jewish people should be able to live in full autonomy here in the land of Israel, which at that time was controlled by the Ottoman Empire. He may have seemed to have failed in his life, as he died at an early age and never saw the establishment of the State of Israel. He was buried in Vienna, Austria. However, in 1948, after Israel's independence was announced to the world, they took the bones out of Vienna and reinterred them right here on Mount Herzl. Here on Mount Herzl is a multimedia presentation and museum all about the life and times of Theodor Herzl. The entire presentation takes roughly an hour as you pass from room to room from different stages and periods in Theodor's life. However, it's here in the interactive part that one can not only learn about Herzl, but all of the Zionist visionary leaders from that time period, which ultimately would end in the creation of the State of Israel. While talking about the modern Zionists and those that set forth the vision for the future of the State of Israel, we would be remiss not to talk about the resilience of the modern pioneers, those that came here and settled the land in the mid to late 19th century. This is known as the first Aliyah, the first wave of Jews returning to the land of Israel. Many of them coming from Romania, Russia, and other parts of Eastern Europe. Sure, they were fleeing the pogroms, but they were also chasing something else. In 1882, nearly 15,000 Jews from Eastern Europe came here to the land of Israel when it was barren, stricken with swamps and malaria. They worked hard. With their own sweat, they toiled the land. They bled, and they even died just to help it make it prosper. It was these modern Zionists that paved the way for the rest of the Aliyot, the returning of the Jewish people who came in droves thereafter. There were nearly 600,000 Jews living here by 1948, when the War of Independence took place. We lost 600 soldiers at that time, 1% of the country. That would be like 4 million American soldiers dying in the War of Independence if that battle was fought today. Let's now head to a battle site here in Jerusalem that was fought during the Six-Day War in 1967. Whether it was the battles that were fought in the Golan Heights, where Avigdor Kahalani, a tank commander, fought against over 100 Syrian tanks with less than a dozen Israeli tanks, or the brave battles that were fought in 1948, 1967, 1973, 1982, or 2023. No other battle epitomizes the resilience of the Israeli army known as the Israel Defense Forces than that which was fought right here at Ammunition Hill in 1967 in the heart of Jerusalem. with faulty intelligence that stated there was only one platoon of Jordanian soldiers, roughly 30 of them, positioned here at the heavily fortified Ammunition Hill, a strategic location that links up western Jewish Jerusalem with Har Tzofim, Mount Scopus, on the eastern side of Jerusalem, a small enclave that was still under Israeli control, and the location of Hebrew University. It was here that the IDF arrives with just over 100 paratroopers at 2:30 in the morning on June 6. When they arrive, they're immediately confronted with lines of barbed wire fences that the tanks were supposed to take care of, but they got stuck in the narrow alleyways of Jerusalem. It was up to the paratroopers alone. They began to blow up the fence so they could enter, but this ruined their surprise attack. When they finally entered, hellfire rose, machine gun fire from all sections of the hill. Grenades were being thrown at them, and instead of facing 30 soldiers, there were over 150 Jordanian soldiers here in the trenches. It came down in some points to hand-to-hand combat. The fighting would continue for the next 5 hours here at Ammunition Hill. Over 36 soldiers are going to be killed, over 71 soldiers from the Jordanians. Let's head into the trenches now to see what it was like being one of those brave soldiers, one of those resilient soldiers who entered these trenches. Come with me. Once in these trenches, the width is only wide enough for one soldier. And every corner they pass, you can see there's a bunker with anywhere between 6 to 10 Jordanian soldiers, surprising them, grenade fire with bullets flying at them. Usually the commander, who's at the head of his own troops, would be the first one to fall in battle. The bodies would fall down in the trenches. The soldiers behind him would have to take responsibility, screaming out, "Acharai, follow me." They have to climb over the dead bodies of their comrades. The trenches themselves, narrow, tall, but short enough that they could peek out at the battlefield, being protected by sniper fire with the helmets that they are wearing. However, in certain areas of the trenches, as it gets taller, they can no longer see above it. It's an uphill battle. They don't know where they're going, but they know that they are under heavy fire. At a certain point, the walls of the trenches become too high. They can no longer look out onto the battlefield. The commander of the troops in the trenches looks behind him at his next soldier and says, "I need you to jump out and give us cover as we advance to the main bunker." Without hesitation, that soldier, realizing that this is basically a suicide mission, climbs out, gives cover to the troops so they could advance to the main bunker where the final battle for Ammunition Hill will take place. The final battle for Ammunition Hill will take place right here in the most heavily fortified bunker. The walls, a minimum of 18-inch thick concrete with metal rebar that you can still see on the inside. The Israeli forces will take one of their bazookas, shoot the bazooka at the bunker. It barely scratches the surface, realizing that machine gun fire, bazooka fire, grenades will do nothing to this bunker. The only way to defeat the roughly 10 Jordanian soldiers that are still holed up on the inside will be to bravely come here and actually place explosives by the entrance of the bunker. Soldiers, using incredible teamwork, will advance to the bunker and lay down roughly 30 pounds of explosives. When it blows up, everybody on the inside will be killed, and Ammunition Hill will be in the hands of Israel, which will lead to the paratroopers' advance to the Old City and the liberation of Jerusalem and all of Judea and Samaria. When the dust settles here on Ammunition Hill, roughly 7:30 in the morning, they'll find that 36 IDF soldiers fell in battle. The battles here depict the bravery and courage and resilience of the IDF. But that bravery was fought on both sides. 71 Jordanian soldiers fell in battle, and the surviving IDF soldiers took many of those Jordanian soldiers and buried them here on Ammunition Hill with a sign that says, "Here lies brave Jordanian soldiers." Those soldiers will be returned to Jordan, where they're buried today. In addition to walking through the trenches and experiencing this incredible moment of 1967 and the battle for Jerusalem, there's also a multimedia film that depicts all of the fighting that took place here, as well as a modern state-of-the-art museum that one can walk through in order to be able to touch the stones of history.
I will bless those who bless you, God promised Abraham. Embrace this covenant by connecting with the people of Israel. From Jerusalem's stones to Galilee's shores, experience living faith through their traditions and hospitality. Your journey is more than visiting biblical sites. It's about hearts that welcome your friendship. Your presence matters. Discover Israel.
There are dates that define history, and then there are dates that define humanity. For Israel and the Jewish people, October 7th, 2023 was such a date. The morning broke not with prayer and song, but rather with gunshot, tragedy, and loss. On that fateful day, Hamas terrorists, jihadists from Gaza, entered into Israel and began to slaughter innocent men, women, and children. Kibbutz communities along the border were ransacked. Homes with people inside were burned to the ground. Cars were damaged and destroyed. Many people, over 200, were taken captivity as hostages in the tunnel networks below the ground in the Gaza Strip. October 7th, for the people of Gaza, was meant to break the spirit of the Jewish people, not just here in Israel, but around the world. The fact is it did just the opposite. It fortified our resolve that this is our land and we need to defend it by any means necessary. Immediately, people from all sectors of society, secular, religious, from the left, from the right, all came together, worked together as a team, not just as soldiers, but as ordinary citizens, to make the soldiers' lives better who were going in order to care for the people who had just suffered so much. The people in the center of Israel opened up their homes from those that were fleeing the fighting, both in the south as well as in the north. When Iran and Hezbollah began to attack, again, people did whatever they could to help out those that were suffering, from those who lost loved ones and those soldiers who paid the heaviest price and the families who mourned their loss. After October 7th, the nation went into a state of trauma. And yet, after this time, when the war was ongoing, there were still celebrations. People still got married. In fact, during this time, I myself conducted barbecues for soldiers, thousands of them. And one of those evenings, there was a soldier who told me that the day before he got one day off from the fighting in Gaza to attend his own wedding. He didn't have a Sheva bracha, a ceremony that we do for the 7 days following a wedding. Right there on the spot, during this barbecue, we made for that soldier a ceremony, a Sheva bracha, the 7 blessings. You see, here in Israel, joy itself is an act of resilience. And it's the resilience of the Jewish people here in Israel and abroad that allowed us, even in our darkest times, to still be able to crack a smile and give thanks to God for all of the joy that He gives us, as well as all of the sorrow.
This is Tom Hess blessing you from the Mount of Olives. We say, may God bless you and keep you, cause His glorious face to shine brightly upon you, and give you His shalom.
Here we are, after all of these millennia, still speaking the same language, praying to the same God, living according to the same traditions, all the while right here in the land of Israel. Stay tuned next week as we connect you to the people, places, and lands of the Bible.